Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this edition of the Weekend Wrap-Up. It is February 8th, 2025. I'm David Thomas, Mr. Josh Blevins. We're here to talk about the news that matters. And, Josh, you've got a list of things we need to talk about, but the list is small this week.
We have a short list. Don't bother to get your popcorn this week. Save the time that you were going to give us this week for next week, because next week's going to be a lot busier. But we do have a few things we'll talk about here.
Yeah, but we'll dive in. And first, let's hear from our sponsor, Dennis Young Insurance.
Yep.
Get the results you want with the personalized service you deserve at Dennis Young Insurance Agency.
As a local independent agency, we offer coverage from several different companies, including Erie. So whether it's auto, home, life, personal, or business, we can find the right coverage to meet your unique insurance needs. And with a rate lock advantage, your rates won't go up as long as you do not change drivers, autos, or addresses. Contact us at Dennis Young Insurance Agency, insuring Shelbyville and surrounding areas since 19...
All right, Josh, what all happened this week? It looks like a short week, but I know you're going to start out with some special stuff here.
Yeah, a couple of anecdotes since we don't have a lot of news this week. I was out last night getting my shovel pizza on a Friday night.
All right.
And drove around the square, and it was packed last night.
Wow.
So just a sign that there's a lot of activity, I guess, going on, at least around the square in town, economic activity. There was hardly any empty parking spaces. It was about 6:30 on a Friday night. I think they had that special event, the Valentine's, some kind of a date night on the square. They're giving away free chocolate, I think, was part of the draw.
Oh, is that what it was?
There was free chocolate on the square. So, but still, it was full and packed, and that's kind of a positive anecdote. On less positive, I was driving in this morning, coming down. I ended up coming in from Ward Trace Pike direction and came down Madison Street and Gateway Church, where they have the food giveaway, I think, weekly. I can say that was also packed. So on the downside, we still got a lot of people that are struggling in the area. We had there was a full parking lot and a long line of people down the sidewalk there. So we got both ends of the spectrum going on here in town at the moment. So,
yeah, there's one other thing I want to ask you about the square, Josh. How many? Now, this was in the evening after 6 p.m.?
This was, about 6:15, 6:30 on a Friday.
How many businesses are still open on the square at that time?
Normally, I would say very few, if any. I think because of this special event they were having, a lot of the stores were open. I think normally you're right. Normally after about 5 o'clock, most of the retail, the little clothes and knickknack stores, they closed down. You just would have Glass Hollow, you would have Shovel Pizza where I go on a Friday night, you would have Bocelli, and I think Pope's might be open till about 7.
So no retail stores.
A lot of the retail shuts down in the evening. But this was, again, a special event. This happens a lot on Fridays. We have the Fourth Friday event that happens there a lot and stuff. So it was, so we got both ends. We got good things happening. We got bad things happening locally. Just another, not really an anecdote, but something I picked up from a report this week. I'm a stats nerd, and we got the monthly reports from the Shelbyville Power Company. And at the end of 2024, on their report, we had 317 new residential power customers in Shelbyville in 2024. So that's a solid. That's not like an estimate of how many people moved into town. That's not a census worker going around. That's if you move into town, you need electricity. So we had 317, an increase of 317 family units into the city in 2024, which in planning, we've been using about a 3.6 multiplier on that based on what we think our average family size is. So you're talking about 1,000 people came into the city in 2024 that were not here in 2023. This
is the city, not the city and county, but just city limits.
This is Shelbyville Power, so which they don't offer power, I don't believe, outside the city limits. So so this would
and 13 new commercial.
In commercial, we only had 13, so that's also a sign not a ton of commercial growth. There was only 13 new business connections, or a net increase of 13.
That's including the ones that had shut off too.
So that's a net. So
a net gain of that.
Yeah.
Okay. There's one thing that I wanted to mention before you dove into some of these other topics. The bridge on Highway 130 East out. That's Old Tullahoma Highway. Some of us old folks call it.
Yeah.
It's under construction right now, and you go down to one lane on the east side of that. And, on the west side, too, they shut it down. But it seems like you stay longer coming in on the east side. They're doing some work on that bridge. TDOT's there.
Yeah.
They have a large tractor trailer sitting out. I don't know what's going on, but they're drilling. And I don't know if they're reinforcing it with some steel rebar. I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah.
But that was yesterday, and they're doing it today. So if you go out that way, be careful. You'll run up on it pretty quick.
Yeah. So Yeah. Not the side of town that I'm on, but you are, so good you noticed it. So,
Yes.
yeah. As far as what went on this week, again, it really light. We always touch on the monthly police stats. We got the stats in for January. I'm actually using the council report we got, which has a little more detail on citations. We increased from 324 citations given in January 2024 up to 447 in 2025. So we're writing a lot more tickets. Accidents actually went down. We had 75 in 2024. That went down to 72. Domestic violence incidents also went down from 66 to 50. Number of arrests went up from 145 to 150. The big one is mileage. We surpassed 50,000 miles in January of 2025, which is, if I remember from geography class, I believe you could circle the earth twice at 50,000 miles. So that's a lot of driving by our officers, and response time remained under 5 minutes. 4.5 minutes was what we got on the report that was posted.
That's awesome.
Which is still a crazy, fast response time, and we appreciate them and all the work that our officers do here in town. As far as meetings, there was a grand total of 1 this week. Yeah, which I'm making up for it. Next week is 7. So this week was 1. It'd be nice if we could have balanced them out. 4 and 4 would have been good, but nobody asked me for scheduling. So only meeting I went to Tuesday, we had the city council study session. The opening of the meeting fairly early on, that the city did a $2.5 million check from the state of Tennessee LPRF, which is the Local Parks and Recreation Fund. So this is one of them big old checks they give you to take the picture. Don't take this check down to the bank. You cannot deposit it. You cannot cash it. We don't actually really quite have the money yet. I think there's a couple more steps. But we posted the picture of that, which thank you to the Times-Gazette, who we reposted their posted picture. And got a couple comments from people that said, why are we getting $2.5 million for a soccer field when we've got homelessness and we got roads that need paved and a lot of other things? All I can say to that is a couple things. First, I wasn't involved. This actually happened before I got on the council, so I wasn't involved in this particular decision, but I'm not against it. This money is in the state parks and recreation funds. So this money could not be used to pave the roads. It couldn't be used to feed the homeless. It couldn't be used to kick roosters out of town. It couldn't be used to any of a number of things. I mean, you can look at any decision, especially that government makes, and say, man, I could have spent that money better.
Right.
But at the end of the day, this money is in the parks fund, so it can only be spent on parks. We have a local parks and recreation. That's part of our city government. That's one of the major departments that we have here in the city. So if you're just going to sit and look at every decision and say, hey, we could have spent the money better, I mean, at some point, then I guess you would have to make the decision, do we want to have a local park or not? So, I mean, you could always say because we do spend probably $1.5 million, $2 million, I believe, on the rec center and HV Griffin and stuff. I mean, do you want to shut it down and just feed the homeless with the money and not have a park? Or, so we as a city have decided that parks and recreation is a part of the service that we're going to provide to the citizens of Shelbyville.
And that decision was made years ago.
Oh, it was made well before, I was here.
Years
and years ago.
I think that the rec center, we had the park from the 70s on. Yeah. And the rec center was built, I think, around 1990, 91, 92, in that range, somewhere in there. Yeah. And the indoor pool, we had an outdoor pool. We've made some improvements out there.
Right.
So as long as I've been alive in the city of Shelbyville, we've had parks.
Right. And I got to be honest, I live on the opposite side of town. I live on the far west edge of the city limits, and I don't get to the rec center very often, actually, mainly only for government meetings. But personally, I think something like that in a city the size of Shelbyville is a good thing. I mean, it's good to have somewhere for kids to be able to go and swim in the pool in the summer. It's good to be able to have a place for, people that need water aerobics and exercise and just regular exercise and things like that. It's a good service that the government's providing to the city. Right. And I don't know, I don't have anything against it, and I think it's a good thing. For this particular project, which is the soccer project, which is going forward, it's already been approved. It's costing city taxpayers $770,000, and for that, when it's all said and done, we're supposed to get 6 full-size soccer fields with parking, Some of the expenses, they have to extend the road, so there's paving expense. The parking lot is very expensive. They have to have parking for like several hundred vehicles there. You've got 6 soccer fields. And I can tell you the city just spent, and I did have to vote on this, I want to say over like $550,000 for a parking lot next to the Fly Arts Center, which we're only gaining 30 or 40 spots in this particular go round. So when I look at over $500,000 on 30 or 40 parking spaces versus $770,000 and getting 6 soccer fields, where you're going to have families that are going to be able to get out there with their kids and play soccer going forward for the next 20, 30, 40 years.
The money is leveraged very well.
I don't feel like that's a bad investment. And because, again, we got the $2.5 million from the state, that's how we're able to do that.
Right.
If we didn't have that grant, there's no way the city could have stepped in and done this soccer park. So, and just because, and I realize probably a lot of the people that commented, they don't have kids that are soccer age, aren't into soccer. My kids are grown. They don't play soccer anymore, but I can tell you when my kids were growing up, they did play soccer, and it was something that they enjoyed. And, but for the fact that there were fields where we lived at that they were able to play on, they wouldn't have had that, been able to do that, and they would have been inside playing their video games instead. I'd much rather they were outside playing soccer. So all that to say that I don't feel like that's a bad investment. I think it was a wise use of taxpayer money, and there are other things in the city that we need to be looking at, including paving roads.
Of course.
We've got our police departments in a bad facility that needs to be upgraded. Our fire department needs upgraded facilities. There's a lot of things that we're going to have to pay for going forward. But this was not that, hey, we got this soccer park, so now we can't pave roads or something. It's just one of the many things that city's doing at the time. So
it's and you and I discussed this earlier this week. This is actually part of our infrastructure.
Sure.
The parks are a part of it because it's you might look at it as a utility of entertainment.
Right.
And of course we got the roads, we got our fire. You mentioned fire protection, our police department, we've got our public works. All these things have to work together. Yeah. And they work together. The park has its role in the middle of all that.
Sure. And there's families that look at that before they move to town. They look and say, hey, is there somewhere I can take my kids to go out and play? Or is there somewhere I can go exercise other than Planet Fitness? Maybe I want to go to a different facility or something. They look at that as part of their decision to move to the area. So I think it's a good thing, and I'm glad we're getting it. And other positive news that came out of the study session was, and I think we talked about this a week or so ago when it was announced, our fire department is, we have to approve it, but I don't know why you wouldn't approve it. We're going to receive a Firehouse Subs grant in the amount of roughly $28,000. They're using that for like an ATV or a UTV, one of those things where you can, go out and get them off road and get them to locations that they couldn't otherwise get in a big truck. The big thing that we were looking forward to, we talked about it last week on the show, is up for available for discussion anyways at the study session, was the fact that the Shelbyville-Bedford partnership has extended an invitation back to the city to rejoin the partnership and membership. And we thought there might be a little discussion on that. And honestly, it was kind of a dud. I was a little disappointed.
No discussion.
Not a whole lot of talk, not a whole lot of discussion one way or the other. It was more just to the nuts and bolts of how, if the city were to rejoin, how the money would be paid, how much money, that kind of thing. So I guess it's on the agenda for Thursday. So it appears we may have a vote on Thursday, and we'll find out.
Do you think there will be more discussion when it comes to a vote? Or do you think people are just made up their minds about what they want to do? I don't know if people
have made up their minds. I mean, I've not gotten a lot of information, honestly. I got a 2-page letter saying that they had extended us the invitation. But for me, and I'm just, one vote on the city council, the partnership initially and I only go back 3 months. So, a lot of this is just what I've heard before I was on the council. But the partnership originally was brought in as a entity to bring in industrial development and recruit industry and business into the county so we could get jobs. Currently in Shelbyville, in the city limits, and also in Bedford County, we have no available industrial property to bring in a big industry. There is nothing zoned I-3 in the city of Shelbyville right now that's available. So we had an industrial park. It is completely full. All the acreage is spoken for at the moment. So as far as industrial recruitment, I don't even know how you go about that until you identify some properties and get them ready. to have that. So I think that needs to be the first step on that. The partnership works in the area of workforce development, which that is, training the next generation to come up and, be able to work in those industries that you're hoping to recruit.
Okay. So how do they do that? Do they have a school somewhere?
Well, that would be my question. We have Bedford County Schools has a great CTE program now where they're doing career and technical education. We're bringing in, we have agricultural education going on at Central and I believe Cascade, where they're actually building facilities where you can actually get on, training in those fields at the school. And then we've got TCAT under construction, their new facility on 231, and they'll do, technical training, but those organizations, I think, can function by themselves and provide us workforce development. I think that's what they do. That's their business. So I as a council person, wouldn't step in and propose to tell them how to do their work. I would think they would know what they're doing. And then the last piece of the puzzle that the partnership works in is as they've taken over the Chamber of Commerce, they now are our, I don't know what the official term is, but they're a quote unquote official representative for tourism for the area. As you and I have discussed several times, I'm not sure yet that Shelbyville is a massive tourist destination. If I'm sitting in Boise, Idaho, and I look for places to go on summer vacation,
it's not Shelbyville unless you've got Tennessee walking horses.
There you go. We do walking horses. That's our big out-of-state draw. And again, that industry does their own marketing. I don't know that they need us helping them do their marketing.
Well, actually, Josh, they probably could.
They probably could use a hand.
The partnership.
Yeah.
If they focused on what we do have to capitalize on, I'd say would be the Tennessee walking horse industry of helping get public awareness back to it.
Right.
Because it needs help there.
It's got a black eye for, a lot of what's gone on over the last few years. So, so that maybe they could use a handout, a help out there. But I don't, again, from a 2-page letter, I didn't get enough information to make me feel good because the ask is $100,000 a year of taxpayer money. So I'd want to see some solid, return on investment on that before I'd want to commit to, to that going forward.
Otherwise, you could pave some roads.
You could pave some roads for $100,000. It's actually tourism money. And honestly, and I know there was a lot of debate at the time it happened, but a big chunk of that was used recently to bring Chick-fil-A to town. Another big spending of that money recently has been on this Riverview District project back there. I think $500,000 of tourism money was targeted towards that to try to improve that area where Glass Hollow and the Grindstone Cavalry are going to be at. And I hear, and I can't talk anything about it, but I hear on the north side of town there may be another project coming, very soon that could also be a good use of this particular tourism, economic development. It's the hotel motel tax money is what it is.
Right.
At the end of this year, I looked at a budget where we would be sitting at a fund balance of a little over $200,000. And there is a project that I'm, again, just heard some rumors about on the north side that could be a good use of that money, that we could actually make a direct infusion and possibly make a project kind of like we did with Chick-fil-A, where if a little money would help push it over the top and make the project happen. So I'd honestly rather do that than earmark that money into a partnership that we're not quite clear on, what direction it's going at the moment.
Right.
So, and nothing against, and there's some great people I've met that are working at the partnership now, and they're doing good things, but I'm not sure that's where the taxpayer money needs to go. But possibly this Thursday, we might actually get into some real discussion. We'll see if it goes anywhere.
Maybe we can get some clarity there.
Yeah, get some clarity there. And then the last big thing that was on the study session for the city council was the waste transfer station. That is going to finally be voted on this Thursday. And we're not actually voting on a waste transfer station. All just the vote is we have one that is proposed to come into the city, and our current city zoning doesn't allow it, or it's unclear enough that we're not sure that it allows it. So all we're voting on is, do we make revisions to our zoning ordinance that would allow and in this case, in an I-2 zoning to have a waste transfer station. So this was, we've been back and forth with this probably about a month now, maybe a little over a month. And on the front end, there was a lot of lack of information. We weren't really sure what was going on. We kind of slowed it down. We did a lot of research. I talked about it at the meeting. I think we talked about it last week. I even took a field trip down to Manchester, looked at one of these facilities. I think we've got enough information now that at least me personally, as one of 6 on the council, I'm not feeling too bad about it. I think our planning department has done a good job of setting some pretty strict rules on it as far as location in the city. It's going to be 750 feet away from basically anything, a school, a church, a residence. It's got to be way out in an industrial area. It's got limitations. They can't keep more than 1 semi-truck trailer full of trash on the facility overnight, and that trailer has to be covered, which under state rules right now, they could have an unlimited number of trailers as long as they're covered. We're tightening that down to 1. There's some regulations that I believe are going to be on there that I talked about at the study thing that we had about it, where we're going to treat construction and demolition waste the same as we do municipal waste, whereas at the state level, construction waste, you can let it sit there forever. And we're not going to allow that. We're going to treat it the same as any other trash, where it's got to get on-site and off-site the same day.
Yeah.
So we've set up a lot of rules in there that hopefully are going to keep this to where it's, not a bad facility. And also the big thing is it's saving taxpayers a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because all we have to do now is take our trash from in the city, keep it in the city to this location, and the company that runs the transfer station from that point on is responsible to get it out of the city into Alabama in a landfill, and we don't pay a dime beyond the tipping fee to get it dropped off at the transfer station.
Here's the topic about
we
really need to focus in on.
Yeah.
And you as a elected representative of Ward 5,
yes,
I'm sure you get input from your people there. I've talked to several people, just asked their opinion on it. First of all, 90% of them didn't have a clue what I was talking about. Okay?
Right.
Didn't know what a transfer station was. First thing they thought was landfill.
Right.
So after I explained to them, no, it's just a place where our trash will go to be picked up and hauled out of here.
Right. Yeah, it goes
And
from one
others'
truck
trash-
and gets loaded into a bigger truck. Yeah.
Most of those people said, well, why can't they do it somewhere else? I said, well, here's the thing. If they do it somewhere else, we won't get the benefit of cheaper tip fees and cheaper hauling.
Right.
So it's going to end up keeping us from having to raise taxes in the city for your trash.
Right.
They're all on board with it at that point.
Or a trash fee. The alternative would be a monthly,
monthly trash fee.
Yeah.
When I explained it like that, everybody's all on board.
Yeah.
Till you got to that point, though, it was like, no. They thought that we're going to be taking people's trash in, and that people hadn't paid attention to what's going on.
Right.
But when it's explained to them, they're okay. They understand it. They don't like to talk about trash to begin with because we don't have trash.
No,
nobody. We don't around here have trash, but we do have to get our trash out of here.
Somehow you got to get.
And this is the process. Yeah. And when it's talked about that way, and you explain to people, well, this is going to keep us from having to pay more money down the road, and it's not going to sit here and pile up. It's going to be transferred out of here. That's what the transfer station does. Yeah. They understand and say, we need to do that. So just from a standpoint of asking 10 or 12 people, that's kind of how I came back. Have you had the same?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there was a lot on the front end. There was a lot of questions, particularly about traffic. And you're right, about trash piling up. Nobody wants us to have trash mountain over next to the high school. You don't want to be sitting at a high school football game and see a mountain of trash over across the way. But none of that is supposed to happen. Everything's supposed to happen inside the building. It's all enclosed. The trash is gone at the end of the day. It's Alabama's problem at that point. They've got it in their landfill. More power to them if they want to take our trash, but we'll keep sending it to them.
Bottom line, this helps the city of Shelbyville get rid of its trash.
Helps
at a cheaper cost. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, it saves money. The only slightly other alternative, it wasn't even a good alternative. There's one of these already in Estill Springs. But in order to utilize that facility, you got to take our trash trucks. Every single trash truck got to drive to Estill Springs, drive back. Expensive. Wear and tear on the equipment, extra, pay for the employees, extra hours for the guys. Probably need more equipment because you need to have more trucks to be going back and forth.
So I'm going to say this, just to defend the city council now, when they make this decision, and 10 years from now, when you say, I didn't know we had a trash transfer station there. Why did we do that? We did it to save you money.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah, that's
and to make it more efficient to get our trash out of here.
Yeah, and it's not just saving the city; it's actually saving the county
county
probably
as well.
more money because they actually get a little more tonnage at the county, and they're going to be able to take their trash to our transfer station, get it hauled out of here. Whereas they're currently having to drive to Lewisburg.
And the city is not going to be running this. This is a private company doing it. The city is not going to be in charge of that station.
No, we're not, and it's regulated by both the state TDEC. It's also regulated by, there's a long contract, which I got a copy of and read through, by the Interlocal Solid Waste Authority, I believe it's called, and they've got a list of rules and regulations there. The state comes in and inspects surprise inspections about once a quarter, but the Interlocal Solid Waste, they're allowed unlimited inspections whenever they can just drop in on a day and just look at it, make sure it's operating according to the rules.
Josh, this opens up another can of worms to a lot of bigger topics, okay?
Yeah.
Not just trash, but I feel like that in the past, our local representatives have made correct decisions, but it wasn't explained properly to everybody, and people weren't paying attention. They didn't have a good lock on the story of actually how it benefited the residents. And later they criticized it because they didn't really understand. And I think all the stuff that we do, and the city has to make a decision, or the county has to make a decision based on what the public wants. The public's got to kind of understand what's going on. And it's so important for everybody to stay informed when stuff like this happens, so they can say, "Oh yeah, that makes sense," and they throw y'all under the bus later, you know.
Well, and that all goes to a big topic that we talked a lot about, especially during the campaign, which is government transparency. The government, a lot of this stuff has happened where it was too hard for the average person to get all the information on the front end. The government needs to be out there. You know, you and I sit here and talk about it every week, but it's the onus is on the city and the county to put that information out there as much as they can in advance, ahead of time, and not to have, we don't need these, meetings that nobody attends, or, where decisions are made behind closed doors. As much as can be out there. And a good thing that has happened at the city, and the county had been doing this for a while, even some of these smaller committee meetings, which we'll get into those in a minute, some of the ones coming up this week, like the beer board, which nobody had been to a beer board meeting ever. Those are on YouTube now. So if you actually have some kind of interest in what's going on in the city and the county, all of those meetings now are online. And
you can do that, or you can just tune in right here.
Or you can tune in right here.
And we're going to try to do our best to explain these things objectively.
Yeah.
So that people out there can know and contact their representative. And that's another thing. We got to always constantly remind people who their representatives are.
Right.
And if you're sitting here in the city today, and this is another topic that came up with one of these people that asked about the county issue, some of the county issues came up in the conversation. And they said, well, that just don't affect me. I said, no, if you live in the city, you live smack dab in the middle of Bedford
also live
County.
In the county, and you have two county commissioners.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand that what goes on in the county is them. That's if you're in the city of Shelbyville, you are in Bedford County, and Bedford County government serves you. Okay?
And you pay those taxes.
Exactly. So, you remember property tax time. It's Bedford County
both.
And Shelbyville City.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're going to do our best here to cover this stuff, and it's the news that really matters.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in D.C. We don't even talk about that because, there's too many people talking about it already. And there's stuff that goes on in Nashville at the state level, and we don't get into that because the stuff that actually hits you at home is the stuff that happens right in the local area.
Okay, Steve Jordan, Stephen Gall, thanks for chiming in this morning.
Yeah.
Back to it, Josh. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I feel like that people just don't take the time to see what's going on. And you, as a city council person, can't go around and knock on everybody's door and tell them exactly what's happening.
No, that'd be a long day.
Hopefully, this is a source where people can find out, and people need to get curious and start asking questions.
Yeah. And actually, that's really all we're going to cover on the current week. Let's hear from our sponsor one more time. We've actually probably got more to say about what's going on next week.
Right. All right. So here we go. We want to thank Dennis Young Insurance for being our sponsor. Let's hear a word from him.
Yep.
Get the results you want with the personalized service you deserve at Dennis Young Insurance Agency.
As a local independent agency, we offer coverage from several different companies, including Erie. So whether it's auto, home, life, personal, or business, we can find the right coverage to meet your unique insurance needs. And with a rate lock advantage, your rates won't go up as long as you do not change drivers, autos, or addresses. Contact us at Dennis Young Insurance Agency. insuring Shelbyville and surrounding areas since 19...
Again, welcome back to Weekend Wrap Up. Josh, what else is going on next week?
Next week is going to make up for this week. So next week I have 7 meetings on my agenda, and just on Monday I got 3, but we're going to talk about 2 of them. Monday morning is the monthly city pre-planning meeting. That is the meeting before the meeting where all the department heads get together and talk about the items that will be on the Planning Commission's agenda the following month. I've seen an early copy of this agenda. Really only item that I'm thinking of off the top of my head that might be of interest, and we talked about this a long time ago, but Walmart DC is about to basically double in size. So it may even be a little more than double. I'll have the square footage next week when we talk about it. But they massive expansion going on out there. The facility is already huge. It's about to get huger. And
is that a word?
I don't know if that's a word or not. So, but the big thing with that be, I mean, they're a fairly major employer here in the county.
Yeah, they are.
And I would assume with twice as many square footage, hopefully they at least add a few more bodies out there.
It's my understanding that a lot of this is going to be robotics,
and it may be,
but it still requires people.
There's going to some level of people. You would think you can't double in size without adding a couple of people. So it's a good thing. And pre-planning will be discussion. They're just looking at the actual nuts and bolts of the building, and as far as codes and everything, make sure everything's up to snuff. And then it will come to planning the following month. Noon on the same day on Monday, we're having what is called the City Growth Meeting. We had 2 or 3 of these last year. We started about this time last year. I wasn't on the council at the time. They met, they talked about growth. They had all these great ideas, and nothing really came of it. So we're going to start all over again this year, try the same thing. And this time the goal is not to just meet and talk about it, but to take actual action. So I know that'll be crazy. So we're going to try anyways. And I'm not counting on action yet, but I'm hoping for action. So some of the things that came out of last year's meetings, which have actually made a little movement, but still haven't gotten to a vote, are we're hoping to increase green space requirements on major subdivisions, PUDs, R4s. I'm hoping even on R3As. We're also looking to hopefully change setback requirements. Currently, if you build a PUD in the city, you're allowed as small as a 5-foot side setback, which you do 5-foot side setbacks on 2 lots next to each other. You do the math, 5 plus 5 is 10 on my calculator, which puts houses 10 feet apart, which is not only just overly dense in general, it's actually a fire safety hazard, because anything under 15, if you don't have the proper fire rated materials, if house number 1 starts on fire and there's a little bit of wind, house number 2 is burning as well. So besides being just a general density issue, that's a safety issue. The green space is just a general, we don't want to end up wall-to-wall buildings with no trees and green space in the city. I mean, we're currently a rural area. We don't want to turn into Southeast Nashville or Murfreesboro if we can help it.
Speaking of Murfreesboro, Josh, yesterday, it just came out, WKRN reported late yesterday that the city, maybe it was Rutherford County, I can't remember, the city or the county one, I think it was the city, basically has asked the state permission to put a moratorium on all apartment complexes where there's 25 units or more, certain criteria. It's because of the density issue they're having there and the overpopulation. They use the word overpopulation in the area.
Same thing we're having here, only they have it obviously on a much bigger scale. And actually, I read a similar article. I believe Goodlettsville is trying to get in on that as well. They were talking about seeing if they could get allowed a moratorium for sale on the same thing on apartments and high density kind of things.
Yeah.
So
if you don't kind of pause sometimes and take a look at things like what they're going to do, their deal will be for 1 year, but it can be renewed year after year as long as they keep approving that moratorium. They basically are saying we can't handle this. We can't deal with it, and they're already in a mess. Yeah. And the next thing you know, if you don't try to put some check on it, you look like a third world country. Yeah. You've seen Rio de Janeiro, the pictures of the mountainside just covered with houses just stacked on top of each other.
And the tax, if you do the math, the taxes don't cover the costs of what it takes as far as schooling and police and fire. So they're going in the hole every time another one of these
they're bankrupted themselves.
Yeah, they can't provide the services. So, and unfortunately, I did read that article, a couple other ones. even if they get this approved, it doesn't help us because it applied to counties over a certain size, which we don't fit. So I don't even know. Not everybody realizes, but currently in the state of Tennessee, you're not allowed to do any kind of a development moratorium. There was some kind of a court ruling last year, I think it was. So they've told us we're not allowed to issue any kind of moratorium. So which is why they're going back to the legislature trying to get a special one for them. But that's why all this growth coming into Bedford County, we have to keep those applications moving. They have to be voted on.
But you can set your planning up to a way to where you grow in the fashion you want to grow.
You can set the rules, and that's part of what this growth meeting on Monday will be
so
about.
Important.
Yeah, you
that
need
the
to
right moves made today are going to affect 20 years down the road.
Yeah, because the developments we have now are based on the rules that we had 10 or 15 years ago, and we now know that a lot of those rules weren't strict enough because we see the product that we got. So Tuesday, County Commission, I had committee, I don't know I had that on here, but it's the County Commission, their main meeting. 2 or 3 big items on the agenda. One that got a lot of interest when we posted about it. The speed limits are very likely going to change in the county. We talked about those before. Currently, if you're unmarked, you're 55 miles an hour. We have a lot of roads that are marked at 45, and that's pretty much all that we've marked right now. But this is going to put speed limits on all 600 and some roads in the county. There were only, 15 or so that were going to stay 45. Right. The majority were going to go down to 30 miles an hour. And then if it was a dead-end road, those would drop to 25 miles an hour. We have a new county sign department now, so they're able to print those signs themselves. So they would, I would imagine, go, if all this passes through the county commission this week, I would say they'll probably start going out in force and start putting up signs.
Okay, this also means that we can mark the roads as well.
They're currently doing that. Yeah, they've already replaced, I think they said, over half of the county roads, 300 and some roads.
We were trying to write them on the road.
They were trying to paint them on the road.
That
didn't go over well. I'm not sure what happened with that. So, but then the other big one on the county agenda is County Wastewater Authority. They're proposing a private act to send this up to the state legislature to get a private act to establish a county wastewater authority. This is one that we've been kind of vague on. We've not had a lot of information. We've asked a lot of questions. I think, honestly, from the county commissioners I've talked to, a lot of them are still a little unclear on what's going on with this. And I have enough to do in the city that I've not done a super deep dive into this, but I did print out the private act. I've got 2 things, and not a lawyer, don't play one on TV, but just a dude reading the language in the act. 2 things concern me, and I'm just going to read a couple things, and then we can discuss. Number 1, and this is actually item 2 on the private act, the purpose of the Bedford County Wastewater Authority, and it lists the purpose as planning, acquisition, operating, and financing of wastewater systems. And then you get down to item 7, and this is called condemnation in eminent domain. The wastewater authority may condemn in its own name any land, rights in land, easements, and other right-of-ways, which in the judgment of the board are necessary for carrying out the purpose for which the authority is created. And remember, again, the purpose was planning, acquiring, operating, and financing wastewater systems. So the basically what seems, just me reading it, not being a lawyer, knowing a whole lot about what's going on here, but it seems like the county commission will appoint this board. So you're going to have a board of people. There's nothing in here that really clarifies how many people are in the board, I don't think. I don't even think there's a number of 5 people, 7 people, who knows. So you're going to have a board of people, unelected, and they can condemn property and use eminent domain to take over property that doesn't belong to them, which is that's pretty strong power, to be able to take somebody's property. If you own a piece of property and you don't want somebody putting wastewater on it, and they do, that I wouldn't be happy. And then kind of the thing that got me is the pitch that we were given on this when I talked to a few people about it that were in the know, was that this was kind of for oversight of step systems and to kind of give more regulation. So if this was just about regulating step systems, I would have expected the purpose to be regulating wastewater systems. But the purpose is not regulating. The purpose is planning, acquiring, operating, and financing. So financing means money. So that's bonds. I don't know what that is. That's not clarified. I believe the word bond is even mentioned in the private act. So is this private board now going to be borrowing money to finance step systems? It doesn't just say they're overseeing them. It says they're operating, financing, and acquiring.
Would they be a building them as well? Acquisition,
operating, planning. I mean, everything. The word building is the only one that's not in there, but
right.
it says they can acquire them, they can operate them, and they can finance them. So I'm a little unclear. And again, I've spoken to a few county commissioners who are as well. I mean, I don't know that we want to be in the business of running step systems out in the county. The only purpose of step systems is to build,
Multiple
bigger
units,
neighborhoods, multi-unit neighborhoods in the county. And I'd always heard that our goal countywide was to maintain our rural character, which is not neighborhoods running on step systems. So a neighborhood running on step systems is 300 houses with, a big step system, with all the sewage running into it.
Right.
So I don't know. I'll be curious what discussion happens Tuesday night, and then kind of the direction our county commissioners vote as well. So I'm a little unclear on it.
Hopefully questions will be asked.
Hopefully questions will be asked, and hopefully questions will be answered.
But the question is, who answers those questions? I mean, who has put this proposal together?
Right. Yeah. It's come from, it doesn't even say on here, honestly, but I
just
know
popped up out of thin air.
Well, our county attorney wrote
the
private act based on some other private acts that he had. So
but somebody
should have some
so I'd
answers,
say this is coming from maybe our planning department.
Possibly. I would assume planning will be
we need to
questions.
look at doing this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So hopefully there'll be somebody there to answer some questions. Seem to be a lot of questions. So Wednesday, another very small board, but beer board meeting for the city is meeting Wednesday night. One interesting thing I saw, they post their agenda. They're looking at changing, I believe, some of the municipal rules surrounding beer, or I don't know exactly what they're looking at changing. Some kind of rules changes. So I'll be curious to see what they're doing there, because I would assume the city council will then have to vote on those changes. Thursday, my first ever Railroad Authority meeting. So I still don't know exactly what the Railroad Authority does, but hopefully after Thursday, I'll know more about what happens.
We will have a special report.
We'll have a special report on what goes on at the Railroad Authority. That is one that is not televised. And then Thursday night, we have our monthly meeting of the City Council at 6 o'clock at the old Chamber of Commerce building across from the dinner table. And on that is like a 4 or 5 page agenda. It's mainly the things we just talked about from the study session.
Sure.
There are 7 or 8 rezonings on there. They're all second reading those. There wasn't any discussion of them at the study session because they'd already been presented 3 other times. So there wasn't any reason to go through the slides again. There will be a possible vote on the membership and the partnership. There will be a definite vote on the zoning ordinances for the waste transfer station. So it should be a fairly long meeting, perhaps.
Yeah, and I'd say we'll probably have a long show next week, Josh,
I would say next week we're going to have a lot to say. So.
I've got 3 or 4 hot points lined up in that one that I'm anxious to see how this comes out.
We're going to see how it turns out. Yeah,
just see how the conversation goes.
Yeah, and hopefully there is conversation, and that gets back to what we were talking about earlier. For the public to feel good about some of these decisions that the council and the county commission makes. For them to be informed, there needs to be the transparency of these discussions need to happen out in the open at these meetings, not having everybody made up their mind ahead of time. And there's no discussion. Then if you're out in the public, you're just like, why did this happen?
These meetings coming up this week will indicate whether we have representation or not.
Right. Yeah.
Honestly, you can take a look at these meetings, these topics coming up, and you can tell by the questions that our commissioners and our city council people ask whether or not they're representing the people.
Yeah.
And I'm anxious to watch that.
Yeah.
And I will report on that separately from you, Josh.
Yeah, that's
I'll give you an unbiased opinion on it.
You give me your most unbiased opinion you can come up with. So I'll be looking forward to it. So,
well, that seems to be all we've got today, Josh.
That's all we've got. We went longer than I expected anyways, but we appreciate
I
everybody
like to jump off and chase rabbits from time to time.
That's all right.
But we appreciate everybody watching again, as usual.
And we'll be back here, same place, same time, same channel next week, and talk about the news that matters here in Shelbyville and Bedford County.